Okay, now.
I'm the top dog in the league, homie.
Yeah.
Let's speak on it. This stretch for anybody to reach on me.
Don't reach.
Just breathe on it. Don't tell them. They gotta know it's me
They know
on it.
it.
Won't kick it on me and go for three
They
on
know
you.
it.
You couldn't guard me with the cleanest armor.
know.
I got it covered.
Yeah.
These corners.
Yeah.
I'm the top dog in the league, homie.
That me.
Let's speak on it. This is a stretch for anybody to reach on me.
Don't reach.
Just breathe on it. Don't tell them. They gotta know it's me on
now.
it. We don't kick it on and go for three on
now.
you. You couldn't guard me with the cleanest armor.
Yeah.
I got it covered.
Yeah.
These corner
Yeah.
like yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of D's Corner. I'm your host, D. We're jumping into our record predictions. We are jumping into the NFC record prediction after I've done a schedule dive. So everything based off of these predictions is coming from me and what I've done as far as looking at the schedule, seeing the dates of the schedule, turn around the schedule, whether it's a short week. And whatnot. So we will see some surprises, I'm sure. So go ahead and leave whatever comments you want to leave, good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter to me. Just the interaction is what really matters. With that being said, please do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. It really does me a lot. So I truly appreciate that. Thank you for looking out for me on that. So with that being said, like I did say, we are jumping into the NFC. I'm going to do all the NFC, but we are going to have it broken down into divisions. But the video is going to be, like I said, all of the NFC. We're going to jump in first. And first up, we have the NFC South. Now, the NFC South, we do understand and know that we have pretty much three teams who are retooling, if you will, with the Panthers having a rookie coach, the Falcons bringing in another, it's not his first time being a head coach, Raheem Morris, who's coached in the division before. The New Orleans Saints, we know that they have questions along their offensive line. They are getting older. The team with the most continuity and returning continuity would be the NFC South reigning champs of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll see how Baker Mayfield does. Will he have the chip on his shoulder still with him being recently paid? So we'll see how all of that works. We'll see how all of that goes. All right, so first up, we're going to look at the Carolina Panthers. As you can see, I have the Carolina Panthers going 4-13. They should be better than last year, but not by much, obviously. They're bringing in a rookie head coach who's working with a second-year quarterback. Even though the O-line should be more improved and Bryce should have decent supporting cast of skilled players, this team still has a ton of questions, especially defensively. There's not a lot of expectation when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. They're not expected to win a bunch of games. They do play some rebuilding teams such as the Chargers and the Raiders. So those are teams that they should possibly be able to compete with, possibly get a victory over, as well as teams like the Broncos and the Giants. The Panthers have the Panthers have begun to rebuild, especially around Bryce Young. Offensively, they have retooled their offensive guard positions with starting caliber guards. So their offensive line actually should be much improved, which should give an opportunity to some of these younger skill players, a player like Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, who's coming along from ACL injury, as well as Jatavian Sanders. This is a team that will offensively, they should be able to grow together. But again, they have minimal firepower on defense. In my opinion, this team is going to have a top 5 pick next year. 2025 is where we may be able to see even more improvement with like I said, this is a rookie head coach coming over from Tampa Bay. We'll see how and what he's able to do. He did work wonders last year with Baker Mayfield. We'll see what he's able to do with Bryce. This is Bryce's since being in the NFL. So obviously it's only his second year, but this is the most weapons that he has had. His best supporting cast, you do have Jonathan Mingo still, Deontay Johnson, you have Adam Thielen, talked about Jonathan Brooks and Jatavian Sanders. So, and they also drafted Xavier Legette out of South Carolina. So they did do a good bit of building around Bryce, trying to make his life a bit easier. I just think it came with too much defensive cost, especially losing Brian Burns and Jeremy Chin. You do have some okay talent on your defense, but in my opinion, I would not say that it is enough. I wouldn't say that it imposes fear on opposing offenses, and I don't think that the Carolina Panthers are coming out of the NFC basement anytime soon. This team, like I said, should be improved from last year, but not by much. We'll see how David Tepper feels about this coaching staff moving forward. If he's able to give them more than a year, we've seen that he wasn't able to do that with Frank Wright, and it could have really hurt Bryce's confidence and his development. So we'll see how that goes. But I have the Carolina Panthers finishing at a whopping 4-13. Next up, I have the New Orleans Saints, who, in my opinion, they've had too much cap issues. They have a ton of questions across the board. Like I said, they still have a ton of questions when it comes to cap, health, especially along the offensive line. And the team's star players are beginning to age. And like I said, health issues. So, it's age and health issues. I think you have a decent quarterback. I do not think that you have a playoff caliber quarterback. I don't think that you have a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. I don't believe in Derek Carr. I don't believe in this coaching staff. In my honest opinion, I believe that they'll be gone after this year. It's going to be an extremely tough outing for the Saints, who, in my opinion, they're closer to a real rebuilding team than they are to competing. The NFC has some impressive young rosters, some really good young quarterbacks, in the Saints, offensively, defensively, position for position, they just do not measure up to those other rosters. Like I said, I believe the Saints will go 7-10, and they're going to be heading towards a rebuild in 2025. There's just too many holes on this defense, and there's even going to be more. DeMario Davis is older. Cameron Jordan is older. Marshawn Lattimore has health issues. Tyrann Mathieu is getting older. You have issues along your offensive line with Ryan Ramczyk and his health, Trevor Penning and his development. So you don't have a ton of weapons outside of Chris Olave. Alvin Kamara is getting older, and he's had issues. He hasn't looked like the same back. Jonathan Williams played last year coming from Detroit and just didn't even look like the same caliber of ball carrier. So we're not really sure. And I could honestly see the Saints losing losing more than the 10 games and winning less than the 7. This is not a team that, in my opinion, fields a really talented offense or a really talented defense, even though I feel this team will be defensively led. They will be able to get some games. Playing in New Orleans is tough. They don't have a crazy difficult schedule. But again, when you look at the teams that they do have to play, in my opinion, I just don't believe that the Saints roster holds up to some of the other teams in the division. NFC South is really not the most dynamic, the most difficult division. Like I said, the Saints and the Panthers, or the Panthers and the Falcons, both have new quarterbacks. They both have new coaching staff. The Falcons have a new quarterback. We'll see how they are. You would think that the Saints, with everyone that they had coming back, adding Chase Young, adding Willie Gay on the defensive side, you would think that they would be able to be better. But Young didn't show me a lot when he was traded over to San Francisco, so I'm not really sure if he's able to get back to what he was when he was drafted, especially coming out of college. Maybe Cameron Jordan's able to work with him and get him out of whatever funk he is, maybe, light the fire back under him. get him some of that veteran leadership, something that he hasn't had in his career thus far, especially at a position that he plays. But like I said, I just don't see too much coming from the New Orleans Saints. 7-10, I could definitely see 6-11. Really just depending. But again, I definitely think the Saints will be rebuilding in 2025. I believe Derek Carr will be gone, as well as Dennis Allen as the head coach. Along with a lot of those older faces on the defensive side. Marshawn Lattimore could be traded before the season even starts, or during by a trade deadline. So we'll definitely have to see how that goes as well. So next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons, and we're all already following and understanding the debacle, in my opinion, of what they did as far as signing Kirk Cousins and then drafting Michael Penix. So the continuity off the muscle already feels like it's kind of shaky, like the foundation isn't really set and firm. So the Falcons, they're a team that they could contend for the NFC South crown, or they could be picking in the top 10. It's really just, it's no real clear cut way when it comes to this team. They should be decent offensively, and Raheem Morris is going to have to make magic defensively. We do know that he is known for his defense, but we're definitely going to have to see it this year with the minimal additions that they did have, even through the draft. I just think that some of the players that they picked at positions of need were kind of reaches. So we'll see how the development of those players go. A player like a Rojo from Clemson, in my opinion, was probably more of a later second round, early third round guy. But we'll see how that goes. Kirk Cousins coming off a major injury. And like I said, there is the Michael Penix situation. Raheem Morris, like I said, he's going to have to impress with subpar talent and overall on defense. Their first 3 games are going to be really, really difficult. You have the Steelers, the Eagles, and the Chiefs. But I think those are their toughest games. It's not like they have the most difficult schedule. They play 7 teams with either a new head coach or a new quarterback or both. Offensively, the Falcons should be able to score points. They do have a plethora of skilled players with Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. They also picked up Darnell Mooney as well. So they do have some players. They have a favorable schedule, and they're in a favorable division. I have the Falcons finishing 9-8, and they do have a slim chance of making the playoffs. They'll need to continue to add to their roster, especially defensively after the 2024 season. Especially if the Dirty Birds want to get back on top and be back to being a prominent team, a playoff team, and a Super Bowl contending team. We're just going to have to see how everything shakes with the addition of 2 quarterbacks. And there's a saying that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. And right now, the Atlanta Falcons are in a situation where they have an aging veteran in Kirk Cousins, who's coming off a major injury, as well as a rookie who is an older rookie and who has injury history of his own. So we'll definitely have to see how everything shakes out. Falcons are a team that, like I said, they're kind of hit or miss. They're not freezing cold and they're not super hot. They're more of a lukewarm team, in my opinion. I think some Falcons fans will have certain games in which they feel impressed, and then they'll have some games where they feel depressed. So I think that's kind of the way things have been with the Falcons ever since the 28-3. So we'll just see how it goes from there. Next up, I have the winners, again, in my opinion, of the NFC South, and this is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They face 5 of the better rosters in football: the Lions, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the 49ers. In my opinion, should all be losses. Outside of that, the Bucs face a very winnable schedule. They should allow them to repeat as the NFC South champs and get them into the playoffs. There are a few questions as well when it comes to the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield for whatever it's worth, has been known for playing with a chip on his shoulder, especially when his back's against the wall. He plays with some sort of swagger that everyone kind of talks about. Now that he's gotten paid, will he have that swagger? Will he be more complacent? Will he come out? Will he try to be a gunslinger? He still has weapons. Mike Evans has returned. They did re-sign Antoine Winfield Jr. as well. We'll see what happens with Chris Godwin. I believe he's on the last year of his deal. So we'll see how things work there. Outside of that, this defense should be okay with no real major losses. They did trade away Carlton Davis, and Devin White signed with the Eagles. But outside of that, Devin White was kind of in the doghouse anyways and was not getting very much play time, especially late in the season and even into the playoffs. So we'll see how everything goes there. I do like some of the additions on the Buccaneers throughout the draft, especially Graham Barton. We'll see how he functions as a center. He was a tackle. We'll see, but he is versatile enough to play up and down the offensive line. They do have questions as well as Tristan Wirth not reporting to OTAs due to contract issues. So we'll see if he gets paid. I'm pretty sure he gets paid. He's a premier tackle on the left or right side, wherever they play him at. He has played phenomenally well. So I definitely believe he'll get signed and he'll be okay. They should be able to get a decent rushing attack as well. Tampa's going to be one of those teams that they could win the division at 9-8, but I believe they'll be 10-7. It will be between them and the Atlanta Falcons. I can see the Falcons being 9-8 or 8-9. I predicted 9-8, so that's what I'll stick with. Same thing with Tampa Bay. I have them at 10-7. I could see them dropping a game here and it being in a 9-8 situation. The NFC South is not the best division in football. Whoever is the winner, I definitely could see them being out of the playoffs early. But with the way some of the other NFC teams' schedules shook out and how those rosters are, I could see two teams from the NFC South making it to the playoffs, actually. So we'll see how that works out. So next up, there's going to be a lot of surprises here in the NFC East. We do know that there's questions across each team. The New York Giants, their quarterback is going to hinder them a lot, whether it is Daniel Jones or Drew Lock. The Dallas Cowboys, what is going on with the transition from Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer? We have Mike McCarthy on the last year of his contract. Dak on the last year of his contract. Micah and CD haven't reported because they have contract issues. And you also have a defensive scheme change when you're suited personnel-wise for a different style of scheme. So we'll see how that affects the Cowboys. The Eagles, you have two new coordinators, offensively and defensively. One of the better rosters in football, but how will the continuity be? How will the chemistry be? Are they going to be able to mesh early and often? We saw how they just crumbled down the season last year after starting 10-1. So what is this team really going to look like? Also with Washington, new head coach in Dan Quinn, new defensive scheme. Will it bring some attitude? I believe so. And you have a rookie quarterback. What are we going to be able to do with Jaden Daniels? Are we going to be able to get the kid producing? He does have talent around him. Shaky offensive line, but his skill positions are set, and they should be able. He has players that he should be able to get the football to out of his hand early and allow them to make plays. Will he be mature enough to do that? He made a lot of seemed like almost every decision he made was the best decision while at LSU. Can that transition and translate into the NFL? We'll see. This is not a crazy tough division. It's been a two-team race for the longest, but one of those teams, let's just be honest, roster-wise, they are not a good team. They are not as good a team this year as they were last year, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. So there's probably going to be some shocking surprises when you see the records here. But again, look at the record, look at the schedule, and you guys give me your take. Do a deep dive. Really, really look at it and see what you see when you look at some of these teams, even if it is your team, if you're being unbiased. So we're going to start with the New York Football Giants. I have them going 2-15. The Giants should be able to put a decent defense on the field. Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, as well as Brian Burns are really, really, really good up front. Okereke at middle linebacker. So their front seven should be really good. Now, they do have a young secondary, but they should be able to grow and transition. But how much this year and going 2-15, how much faith is going to be in this coaching staff going forward? Brian Daboll did what he could with Daniel Jones, and I think Daniel Jones completed 15 touchdown passes his first year with Daboll, and they paid him over Saquon. That's a decision I think that they are truly, truly, truly kicking themselves in the face about. Daniel Jones is injury prone and he's turnover prone, and to me, those two things alone are going to contribute to losses throughout the season. The Giants are going to be frustrating to watch. If you are a New York Giants fan, go ahead and get ready. This is not going to be a very entertaining season for you guys. It's going to come off as your coach is coaching for his job. And the thing is he's going to be kind of at a disadvantage with the quarterback that he has. And again, that's if it's Drew Lock or if it's Daniel Jones. Devin Singletary is not the running back that Saquon Barkley is. I don't see him being able to create as much as Saquon did behind the shaky offensive line. And you don't know what's going on with Slayton, Darius Slayton, if he wants to come back, if he'll be back, if he'll be traded. He's not reporting to OTAs. He wants a new contract. And if he doesn't come back, you have Jalen Hyatt, who is a second year, more of a speed guy, and Malik Neighbors as your top two targets. That's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie wide receiver, especially one from LSU who wears his emotions on his sleeve, who is not afraid to say what comes to his mind and to be vocal about it. He knows he's a dog. He knows what he can do. He believes in his ability, but I don't believe that he has a quarterback that can help elevate his game, especially as a rookie. He'll make plays because he's a playmaker. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball, he'll make plays. But when it comes to wins and losses, I don't think that Malik Neighbors can impact the game that much, especially as a rookie, especially when you look at who's throwing him the ball. Daniel Jones fumbles a lot. He's not definitely accurate. He will stick around because he was a first round quarterback, so he'll be a backup somewhere. But he should not have been a first round quarterback. He should not have been, in my opinion, re-signed, especially to a big deal. And now you lose Saquon, who went to a division rival, and that's just even more gut wrenching. It's just very difficult a pill to swallow when your best player goes to probably the best team in your division and only makes them that more dangerous, which, like I said, as a Giants fan, you have to just kind of smile through it, I guess. Embrace the suck, as we say in the military. 2-15 is what I got the Giants going. I don't think, and I don't even see them being able to pull more wins than that out. Like sometimes, some games are toss up. They play the AFC North. That I don't believe their rosters match up with any team in the AFC North. Not the Browns, not the Bengals, not the Steelers, or the Ravens. I do not think they are a team physically that will be able to physically handle those four teams. I believe the AFC North is going to be the most physical division. When you look at the running backs alone, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, Derrick Henry, Zach Moss, who played fantastic for the Colts last year, who is now with Cincinnati, and Nick Chubb coming back off of injury. So you have some nice, talented backs. You have nice, talented rushing attacks in the AFC North, and all their quarterbacks are better than Daniel Jones. So I just don't believe that the Giants have what it takes to beat those 4 teams in general. And that's regardless of how good their defense can play. Like I said, their quarterback play is going to hold this team up. This team's going to be starting over in 2025 with a top 5 pick, a new quarterback, and a new coach. The Giants will be the NFC East doormats again this season. The Cowboys have their number. That's just seems to be what it is. The Commanders should be able to play with a new attitude, especially under Dan Quinn. And like I said, the Giants ruined themselves by allowing Saquon to even go to Philly. So this is already, in my mind, they are at the bottom looking up. Everything that they do is going to have to be to swing and scratch and claw their way up. And I just don't believe that this team has that makeup to do so. I think they will be able to have some games competitive because of their defense. But like again, overall, I think the offense is what's going to hold this team back and really, really, really usher Brian Daboll out the door. Possibly going to be someone else's offensive coordinator next year if he doesn't get a head coaching look to the season. So next up we have the Dallas Cowboys. And yes, Cowboys fans, you can go ahead and calm down. You see the prediction, 6-11. Now let's speak to the logical Cowboy fans who have looked at the schedule and know your team. Your team is not a good team when it comes to playing against playoff teams, and you play eight playoff teams this year. Again, you play the AFC North. Physical team. Dallas has always had issues stopping the run, especially the last few years, and they didn't do a lot in the offseason to correct that. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson will be coming into town. Derrick Henry wanted to play for Dallas. He has a home in Dallas. He is going to run all over Dallas. Him and Lamar Jackson are going to put on a field day, and in my opinion, that game is going to be a blowout. They travel to Pittsburgh, which is going to be a tough outing in general, as well as traveling to San Francisco. They play the Detroit Lions as well, who should have beat them if Dan Campbell doesn't go for 2 on 3 separate occasions, I believe. The Browns, Eagles, Lions, Steelers, Ravens, Saints, 49ers, Texans, and even the Giants all have a stout defensive front. And this Cowboys team is going to be playing at least 2 rookies on their starting offense. One of them playing the most important position on that offensive line in Tyler Guyton, who is transitioning from right tackle in college to the left side. In this first game, you're traveling to Cleveland to go up against Myles Garrett in that Cleveland Browns defensive front. You're going to have to go against Nick Bosa, TJ Watt, Aiden Hutchinson, the Eagles pass rush, the Ravens pass rush, the Houston Texans pass rush with Danielle Hunter added to last year's defensive rookie of the year, Will Anderson. So these are teams that pound for pound, player for player, position for position, Dallas's roster doesn't measure up. And that's just the honest truth. Dallas's roster does not measure up with these teams. They're going to San Francisco. San Francisco bullies them on a regular basis. These are teams that can get after the quarterback, and we've seen what that does under pressure. We saw how off him and CD were. CD's not in camp right now. CD's not getting work. So will CD do more holding in? Will he show up when it's mandatory but not participate? Same thing with Micah. The thing about it is we've seen how to kind of neutralize Micah. You run at Micah. All of these teams are capable of running the ball. Back to offense, you have one offensive weapon, and that's CeeDee Lamb. You have some decent young tight ends. You have no threat of a rushing attack. So you can really bracket CeeDee Lamb and get him frustrated, show him and Dak, just like the Green Bay Packers did, showing them that they're not on the same sheet of music and really just frustrating them. Neither one of them, in my opinion, are uh, the rah-rah lead guy. I think they both just lead more so through their play, less through their words. So I definitely see that there was going to be positions and times where you can really frustrate this Dallas Cowboys offense because they do not have absolutely anything. Ezekiel Elliott is not going to go for 1,000 yards. He's not going to lead the league in rushing. He's not going to have 12 touchdowns like he has before. This is going to be a big transitional year for the Dallas Cowboys. They do not, and they are not better this right now than they were when the season ended last year. And that's just the honest truth. This is no bias. I try to be as unbiased as possible when I do these, no matter what team I'm speaking of, even if it's a rival team of my Indianapolis Colts. I try to be, like I said, fair, just in everything that I said, and even going through and doing the predictions, literally team by team, game by game. I could see Dallas maxing out at maybe 7, 8 wins tops. I do not see the Dallas Cowboys as a playoff team this year. And that may shock some and it may not shock others. But looking at Dallas's schedule, they have an extremely tough schedule. They play 8 playoff teams. They play the Philadelphia Eagles twice. The Commanders have gotten better. One thing that we don't think of when you want to talk about the Commanders is Dan Quinn practiced against Mike McCarthy in this offense for 2 seasons. So his team is going to be able to come out and kind of know what they're doing. Dan Quinn is going to be able to get a different attitude out of the Washington Commanders and maybe put a little bit of pride in them like he had with this Dallas Cowboys defense, like he had with the Atlanta Falcons defense, and like he had with the Legion of Boom and the Seattle Seahawks defense. So Dallas Cowboy fans, I apologize, but go look at the schedule and you guys can get back with me. And somebody please tell me where you see more than 6 wins. Like I said, if they're able to slide 8, I wouldn't be shocked, but I could definitely see 6 as their max, and I definitely could see Dallas in a big transition year going into 2025 with a big roster haul of new players. There is a possibility that Dak Prescott is not with the team next year, and if they go 6-11, I don't think that they can justify paying Dak $60 million a year. So next up, we have Washington Commanders, who I also have going 6-11. You look at some of these schedules. You look at their schedule as well. I think there are some games where they're going to be able to skate by. Jaden Daniels he is an electric athlete. He's an electrifying quarterback, not just running, but he is capable of throwing the ball down the field. And with what they have offensively, they brought in Austin Eckler. You have Zach Ertz, who is a veteran tight end, and a tight end is a young quarterback's best friend. You have Terry McLaurin as well as Jahan Dotson on the outside. So you do have nice weapons. These are proven weapons at that. This team defensively, this defensive front should be really good. This should be a different style of defensive front than the Dallas Cowboys under Dan Quinn, because this team is actually built from the interior out. So I don't think this team will be able to be ran on like the Dallas Cowboys were. Bringing in Bobby Wagner, he knows the defense in and out. He was with Dan Quinn in Seattle, so he knows it, the defense like the back of his hand. He'll be able to get in and make all the calls that he needs to make, all the checks that need to make, and put the defense in the right position. What Dan Quinn really means the most, in my opinion, the player that he'll impact the most is Emmanuel Forbes. Emmanuel Forbes, coming out of Mississippi State, got his hands on a lot of footballs. He turned the ball over. He got a ton of interceptions and a lot of pick sixes. If you look at the Dallas Cowboys the last 2 years, you had Trayvon Diggs, who led the league in interceptions, but he also gave up the most yards, if I'm not mistaken. You look at DeRon Bland, Diggs goes down, Bland leads the league in interceptions. Is it the player or is it the scheme? This same scheme made Richard Sherman, and I don't want to say it made Richard Sherman, but Sherman flourished in this scheme. There was the debate back then of was Sherm a true lockdown like Darrell Reeves because he didn't travel. Sherm locked down in this system and in this scheme. And Emmanuel Forbes is that same style of player who is actually quicker. He's a 4-3 guy. He's very thinly framed, but he's a long corner, something that this scheme calls for. He should have a lot of opportunities this year. Should definitely see a big improvement out of this Washington secondary, and I think that's going to be completely handed to and patted on the back for Dan Quinn when it comes to that. The Commanders have a better roster than many people give them credit for. Like I said, Dan Quinn should bring a different attitude to this defense and able to increase turnovers. Unfortunately for the Commanders, they play six playoff teams from last year. And again, the NFC East is playing the physical AFC North. This is not a good thing when it comes to the Commanders, who have a shaky offensive line when you're going against four teams like the Bengals, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Steelers, who all can get after the quarterback and who can all stop the run. There were talks about Jaden Daniels and him taking unnecessary contact. You're not going to want to take some contact from some of these guys. You have Patrick Queen with the Steelers. You have Luke Wilson with the Bengals. You have Roquan Smith in Baltimore. And you have Akusu, I can't remember the guy's name from the Browns, Jeremiah, the kid out of Notre Dame, as well as Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Peyton Wilson now with the Steelers. So you're going to have some athletic, aggressive defenses that you're going to have to go against if you're the Washington Commanders. So I really don't know how that's going to hold up and how everything is going to go there. But the Commanders, in my opinion, will have the same record as the Dallas Cowboys. They will be 6-11, but they will be on a different trajectory than the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys will take a massive decline, and the Commanders will be moving more towards a usurping the Cowboys, if you will. Then we have, in my opinion, the Philadelphia Eagles, who will, in my opinion, win the NFC North. I have them going 13-4. This team had one of the best off seasons, in my opinion, throughout the NFL, with what they were able to do as far as re-signing all their players. So all of them are going into camp happy. You're bringing in Saquon Barkley, who they should be able to use, and he should be the NFC East version of Christian McCaffrey within this Philadelphia Eagles team. You have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith out wide, so you're not going to be able to stack the boxes. You have Dallas Goedert at tight end, a solid offensive line. Cam Jurgens should slide into center and replace Jason Kelsey. You have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, who will replace Fletcher Cox on that defense. Now, the two main questions when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be their new coordinators. We saw when they went to the Super Bowl and they lost their defense and offensive coordinator to the Cardinals and the Colts, respectively. However, now you're bringing in Vic Fangio, who has been a head coach and who has done damage as a defensive coordinator, along with Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator, who put together some pretty good offenses when he coached the Dallas Cowboys. So he's coached in this division. Again, those two things there are very important when you look at what Kellen Moore was able to do with a talented Dallas Cowboys team. In my opinion, this offense that he has with the Philadelphia Eagles are better than those offensive teams he had with the Dallas Cowboys from top to bottom, as well as Vic Fangio, who didn't have a great season as a defensive coordinator when it came to the Miami Dolphins last season. But when you look at what he has this year, they went out and got Bryce Huff. You still have Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, and Brandon Graham. You bring in Devin White to pair next to or with Devin or Larry Dean. You have Darius Slay, who should be able to travel and cover the number one corner on every single team, allowing Cooper DeJean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, and Quinyon Mitchell to move around in that secondary. This secondary and this defensive team in general, Vic Fangio likes to get after the quarterback, and he has so many pieces to draw up so many different blitzes and different fronts and schemes and stunts and disguise coverages that he should have a field day with this defense, and he should possibly get looked at next year, in my opinion, based off what I think this defense can do and what he can do with these players. He should probably be getting some interviews next year as going into as far as being a head coach. Kellen Moore, there, in my opinion, if he runs the football, there's no way he should be able to mess this up. This was a Philadelphia team last year who had two new coordinators who were 10-1 in the first 11 weeks of the season, but now they did fizzle out and had a terrible, terrible, terrible decline throughout the season. But I don't think that that's going to happen this year. Not only did they bring in Saquon, and you can say, well, Saquon has his injury issues as well. They still have Kenneth Gainwell. They drafted Will Shipley, and they drafted Aeneas Smith. These are three players who can spell and give and take the workload off of Saquon Barkley, which should keep you healthy. Saquon is a powerful, powerful back with the ability to hit his head on the goalpost anytime he touches the ball. He can line up at wide receiver. He can line up in the slot. There's so many different things that you can do with this team, and I think that Kellen Moore is going to find ways to do so. I think Kellen Moore is going to find exactly how to do so. This Philadelphia Eagles team, in my opinion, like I said, I have them going 13-4. I think defensively, they're going to be a nasty, nasty team. Having Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back, we saw what he was able to do when his first go around with Philadelphia Eagles, helping them get to the Super Bowl. He's going to force turnovers one way or another. He flies around the ball. If he's in the slot or if he's playing deep, he's going to find the football. He is going to help, which is going to allow some of those young corners and Darius Slay to play more aggressive at the line of scrimmage. Quinyon Mitchell reminds me a lot of a young Darius Slay, so being able to learn from him is really, really good. You still have Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks as well from last year. I can see James Bradbury possibly being cut or traded, but this team is pound for pound one of the best rosters in all of football, and I think this is going to be your NFC East champions, as well as making damage and doing damage throughout the playoffs. So we'll see how everything goes there. Next up, we're going to go to the NFC North. Now, the NFC North, in my opinion, before I jump into each team, this is going to be a better division than people want to give it credit for. The Minnesota Vikings, their main question is going to be at quarterback. But this is a pretty talented roster. Green Bay was one of the youngest rosters, and we saw what they were able to do. They destroyed the Dallas Cowboys at home. Detroit only got better, and they were one of the better rosters last year. In my opinion, I think Detroit, I'm comfortable saying Detroit has a top 5, top 7 roster. The Chicago Bears, in my opinion, have probably one of the best situations that I can think of that a first-round, number 1 overall quarterback has ever walked into. So I really think that this division here is going to be different than what everyone really thinks, what everyone is used to. And if I'm not mistaken, the Lions and the Packers both went to the playoffs last year. The Vikings probably were in position. The Vikings were probably in position to go, but then they did lose Kirk Cousins. So their situation is quarterback. I don't trust Sam Darnold, and I don't trust J.J. McCarthy. So you already saw it. So let's jump in here. And first up, we have the Minnesota Vikings, and I have them going 2-15. Like I said, the Vikings have a solid roster, but the most important position has the biggest questions, and that's quarterback. Can J.J. McCarthy make all the throws? I don't believe that he can. I think he struggles throwing the ball outside the numbers. He has played well for Michigan, but he wasn't asked to do a lot. In the NFL, there's going to be times where he's going to be asked to do something. Brian Flores and this defense should lead this team, but they do have some questions outside of their front seven. I like the pickup of Van Ginkel, Greenyard, and then drafting Dallas Turner. So you're going to be able to go and get after the quarterback. Now, you do have some older players in Harrison Smith, especially. How well is Brian Murphy as your number one corner? So you do have some questions in your secondary. We'll see how everything goes there. But in my opinion, it doesn't matter if it's Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy. The schedule is just going to be too much for either of them, especially early on. You have the Texans, the 49ers, the Jets, the Packers, and the Lions all in the first 5 or 6 weeks. I think they have an early bye week. So that is going to be a lot. And those are physical games, back-to-back-to-back physical games. You're going to be under constant and heavy pressure. All of those teams can get to the quarterback. All of those teams are going to be able to play physical at the line of scrimmage with your wide receivers. Justin Jefferson is not signed yet. How long will it take him to get on the same sheet of music with whoever the starting quarterback is going to be? How long is it going to take to announce or name a starting quarterback? Is it a true battle? And if it is a true battle and Sam Darnold wins, how comfortable are you really with the decision of J.J. McCarthy if he can't beat out Sam Darnold on his fourth team, if I'm not mistaken, fourth or 15? Even though he was the third overall pick, he's bounced around the league. If J.J. McCarthy can't do it, if J.J. McCarthy can't beat him out, what does that really say about where J.J. is and how established this team can be with him? They already have a really, really, really good core of skill players with Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson. You have Addison, Jordan Addison, as well as they brought in Aaron Jones from the from the Green Bay Packers. So we'll see how that works. But like I said, I just don't think that from top to bottom, I don't think that the Minnesota Vikings can really compete, especially with a lot of the teams on their schedule. I have them finishing 2-15. They'll be picking in the top 5. Like I said, the quarterback position is going, in my opinion, is going to be the position that holds them back the most this year. Then we have the Chicago Bears, who we just talked about as well. So the Bears now, like I said, they have probably one of the best situations I've ever seen for as far as supporting cast for the number 1 overall pick. The issue is Caleb Williams is going to face plenty of teams that can get after the quarterback, and they don't necessarily have the best offensive line. He's going to find out early and often just how different the NFL is in comparison to the college game. Caleb likes to play off script. Those off script plays are okay in college. It's not going to be as easy as it was in college when you have 4-3 defensive ends or 4-3 edge rushers or 4-5, 4-6 defensive tackles who are coming with ill intentions. One thing that he will learn fast is the speed of the game. Windows and lanes close faster in the NFL. That's one of the main things all quarterbacks face coming into the league is how they wait for a wide receiver to be open to throw the ball instead of anticipating the wide receiver to be open. We've already seen reports of Caleb having struggles in camp, struggles in OTAs. He didn't complete a lot of passes. So we'll see how that goes. And it's a quarterback. It's a quarterback, and he's a rookie. You're going to have your growing pains. So the only thing is this team going to allow this regime as far as GM and coach? I like what the GM has done. The GM has put players around and has this being able. This is really a decent roster. So I would keep the general manager. I don't know how much having a defensive-minded head coach helps a young rookie quarterback when you don't have an excellent play caller. So where will Caleb be in 2025 if this coaching staff is gone? He's going to be under a new coaching staff, trying to learn a new scheme, possibly without Keenan Allen, who's on a 1-year deal now. Now, he does have a ton of weapons, so getting the ball out of his hand quickly is going to be probably the game plan, especially early. But defensive coordinators are going to try to take away his first read and try to get him to make those off-script plays that he had a tendency to make in college. One thing we do know is that he will turn the football over as well. There are going to be players who are able to track him down. That, like I said, they have a pretty decent schedule for some of the teams that he plays, but this is not going to be a CJ Stroud like rookie season. I've seen people say that about Caleb Williams. I've also seen people call him a bust and say that he'll be a bust. We'll see how that all works. But one thing about the organization in itself, it's not known for developing quarterbacks. It's not known for developing rookie quarterbacks. They don't have a single quarterback with 4,000 passing yards. So we'll see if Caleb is able to do that as a rookie. Again, like I said, I think they're putting a lot of pressure on Caleb, who doesn't even have a veteran in the quarterback room to lean on and to really learn from. So it's going to be strictly a trial by fire, and 6-11 is a decent season for a rookie quarterback, in my opinion. Now, it's not for the Bears coaching staff who can't afford a 6-11 season. So we'll see, like I said, where they are moving forward and going into 2025, but that is probably what's going to happen. I don't see them keeping this coaching staff if they're unable to make the playoffs, depending on how bad the 6-11 actually looks. Now we have the Green Bay Packers, who I have going 11-6. The addition of Josh Jacobs should greatly improve this offense overall. They have 6 playoff teams on their schedule, along with some teams that were close to making it last year. Jacobs should only benefit Jordan Love in this passing attack. They're not going to be able to play just two high safeties because of the threat of Josh Jacobs running the ball, and they still have A.J. Dillon as well. So they should be able to be finesse. They should be able to be ground and pound. They should be more diverse offensively. Love the pickup of Xavier McKinney. Him and Jair Alexander in the back end definitely have boosted the secondary. We saw what Jair is able to do, especially when he's locked in and he's on top of his game. We know that Green Bay is physical on defense. They're going to be able to get to the ball. They're going to be able to get to the passer as well and disrupt the passer. So that's a positive when it comes. The one thing that I think people may forget is the Packers had one of the youngest rosters last year, and they dismantled the Cowboys at home, who the Cowboys don't play the radio pretty much at home. They're usually on point at home, but the Green Bay Packers went in there and made it their house. The way that they were able to execute, the way that they were locked in, and it really wasn't even a game. And I know the scoreboard says something different, but if you watch that game, you could tell that Green Bay came in there with ill intentions, and they performed as such. They really put their foot knee deep in the Dallas Cowboys. Like I said, I have the Packers finishing 11-6, making the playoffs. They're really my dark horse team to be able to win this division. I could see them at 12-5. I could see them at 11-6. The Packers and the Lions are going to really be battling it out for the NFC North crown, which leads me to the Detroit Lions. In my opinion, there aren't many teams that have a better roster than the Detroit Lions. They have one of the best offensive lines in all of football. They have a two-headed monster at running back. Jared Goff is fantastic for what they ask him to do, and they're only going to be better this year because they have Jameson Williams coming back. He is fully healthy this season. He's not coming off an injury, and he's not anticipating being suspended. We saw what he was able to do in the added dynamic he brings to this offense, whether they give him the ball on reverses like they did against San Francisco, or if he's streaking down the field. This team, he adds a blazer on the outside. Coupled with Jahmyr Gibbs, and you have two of the faster players in the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs reminds me a lot of Jamal Charles back in the day with the Chiefs. But I really, really, really like the Detroit Lions. Their secondary is something that held them back. And not only did they go out and add to it, they went out and made it a strength. They already have Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, and Olafonu, who can play out in this the give him a three-headed monster at safety. They like to run those three safeties. Branch is also someone who can play slot. They went and got Terrion Arnold. They went and got Enos Rakestraw, and they traded for Carlton Davis. So they definitely just beefed up that secondary. DJ Reader should definitely make an impact on this defensive front, which is why I have the Detroit Lions going 13-4. If you look at this team and you look at their schedule, this team should be able to get ready and really have a complete turnaround. We will no longer think of the 0-16 Detroit Lions, the terrible Detroit Lions. We will begin to think of the Detroit Lions as a perennial contender. And I definitely think that this is a team that can go to the Super Bowl. The Detroit Lions are a team that just seems not only fun, but they seemed focused. They seem like everyone's bought in on turning around the Detroit Lions. And now that they've done that, it's like they want to keep it up. They want to be consistent. I love everything about Dan Campbell as a coach and how infectious he is to his players because he is a former player. So I really, really, really love that. Like I said, for what they have defensively and offensively, they're able to run so many different schemes, so many different personnel sets to keep the opposing team confused, offensively and defensively. Like I said. So I have the Detroit Lions finishing 13-4, winning the NFC North. No matter how crazy it sounds, we should get used to hearing that the Detroit Lions are considered a Super Bowl contender. Now we will have the NFC West is where we'll finish up. We have the Arizona Cardinals, the 49ers, the Rams, and the Seahawks. Again, all of these teams also have questions. Arizona, you finally have some weapons for your quarterback, but is it enough? Defensively, you don't have enough. And this is another situation where you have a defensive-minded coach and a subpar offensive coordinator. So what will we really be able to do here? I don't think this is I wouldn't call this roster complete. I don't think if the season started tomorrow, I think this would be one of the bottom half of the NFL rosters. I don't think this is a tough team, player for player, position for position. San Francisco, the main question is, when are you going to get it done? When are you going to get it done, or can we get it done? You're getting closer and closer to having to tear apart what you have, especially at the skill position. So what are you going to be able to do? LA Rams, their biggest question is, how do we look now without Aaron Donald? And the Seattle Seahawks, they no longer have Pete Carroll. So what will Mike McDonald's Seattle Seahawks look like? So we're going to have every team is going to have some form of question. Some teams just have the more complete roster, which really allows for some bit of growth, which allows for less dip, especially in production. So we'll see how everything goes there. But first up, we do have the Arizona Cardinals, and in my opinion, I have them finishing 3-14 on the year. They still have plenty of holes and questions on their roster. They play 6 playoff teams from last year. And like I said, position for position, this roster still has a lot of work to do. Kyler Murray played decent last year coming off an injury, but now he's going to be really relied upon as a leader. And I don't think he's a leader. Like, I don't think that he is one of those guys. I think his immaturity has shown, especially in previous seasons. So I'm not really sure how that's going to function, how that's going to be perceived along some of the players. There's already talks about Marvin Harrison Jr. and calling him like a brat and entitled and whatnot, which I don't agree with any of that. But he's coming in as a professional already. He's coming in prepared to work. And I don't know that Kyler Murray is the hardest worker. And that's not my opinion. The Arizona Cardinals had to put something in his contract about it, regardless if they removed it or not. That kind of spoke volumes about what they felt about the player as far as outside of football. And I just don't think he's a real leader, like I said. So, like I said, there's still questions along their offensive line as well. Another situation in which this is a defensive-minded coach, but you need something to do offensively. He does not even have a full roster for what he needs or what he envisioned, in my opinion, defensively. When he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, they attacked the football. They got after the ball. And I just don't think that this team now is in position to do so. Now, 3-14, does that leave Gannon another season to try to maximize and actually build what he wants? Or will this team be frustrated and move on? We've seen patience is not a virtue for a lot of these NFL teams. So we'll see how that goes. So they could possibly be rebuilding, looking for a new coach and a new quarterback in 2025. So we'll see. We'll have to see how that goes as well. Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks. I have them going 7-10. I've already talked about it. They're no longer Pete Carroll, so now it is a Mike McDonald Seattle team. So he's going to try to implement the defense that they had with the Ravens, but they do have a lot of turnover there, so we'll see how everything works there. They're going to field a new coaching staff. It's going to bring its own set of questions and its own set of issues. Honestly, in my opinion, they should start 2-0. The Dolphins should be their first real test in week 3. I can see maybe 2 more wins than I had projected because the Seahawks do have a favorable schedule. I think the main thing will be how fast the culture is instilled and how much buy-in is there across the board when it comes to the roster. The change in defensive scheme is also something that, you should keep your eye on. Those are 2 of the biggest reasons why I have them projected to finish 7-10. Another one would be Geno Smith. He kind of regressed last year, but will he be the starter for the full season? They did trade for Sam Howell. They don't have any ties or any reason to be loyal to Geno or honestly anyone on this roster. Mike McDonald could finish 7-10, and you can see a huge turnover to where he can get the players that he wants to have for his version of the Seattle Seahawks. So we'll have to see how everything goes there, but I think Seattle will be 7-10, which is a decent record for a first-time head coach. Then we'll have the LA Rams, who I have going 10-7, and I know 10-7 may be a stretch for some people who are thinking of the Aaron Donald situation with him retiring, but in my opinion, this is the new look Rams. I've said it in other videos that they were going to have to place Aaron Donald with a group of players. And in my opinion, they really did a good job drafting Jared Verse as well as Braden Fisk to team up with Kobe Turner and Brian Young. So, and Ernest Jones as well at linebacker. So your front 7 should be okay. Tre'Davious White gives you a veteran presence in your secondary along with Darius Williams. So we'll see how everything goes. We'll see how everything goes there as well. So let's just see how everything goes. One thing we do know is that Sean McVay is a hell of a coach. He is a hell of a play caller. And one thing that he does have is offensive veteran leadership. This team's going to be led by Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. You're going to have Blake Corum and Kyron Williams giving you a 1-2 punch in the backfield, as well as Puka Nacua continued growth. So you are going to have weapons. This young defense is going to be, especially that young defensive front, that's going to be the main thing. How are we going to be able to turn this up? What can we do? And how are we going to be able to scheme some guys open now, because Aaron Donald was taking on 3 and 4 blockers at a time. So like I said, I have the Rams 10-7 and winning the division. And last but not least, I have the San Francisco 49ers at 12-5. This is a team that we all expect to be back in the Super Bowl. This team has one of the better rosters, like I said, especially in the skill players. Leonard Floyd should be a great veteran presence opposite of Nick Bosa, and Devondre Campbell is a player at linebacker who definitely can come and ease the loss of Dre Greenlaw because he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl. Now, the season does open with the New York Jets. In my opinion, I feel like that's going to be a loss. Aaron Rodgers plays the 49ers hard as hell every year. He's still pissed that they drafted Alex Smith over him, and he had to sit in the green room and wait that long. So he always plays with a chip on his shoulder there. Now, the Niners do play 8 playoff teams, but some of those teams, like the Cowboys and the Bills, are not what they were last year. Those two rosters are going to be completely different, and in my opinion, are and should be not necessarily easy wins, but the Cowboys should be an easy win. They should dominate the Cowboys, but they should be able to beat the Bills as well. In my opinion, this is the last and final year for this version of the San Francisco 49ers because they're now going to have to play. They're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. You already have the situation with Ayuk. Kittle's on a big deal. Debo's on a big deal. Christian's on a big deal. Trent's on a big deal. Nick Bosa's on a big deal. Hargrave's on a big deal. So what are we going to do when it comes to all of these players that you are going to have to now transition away from? You're going to have to transition out of, because now all of our money is going to have to be allocated to our quarterback. This is going to say what they truly feel and think about Brock. Is he a game manager? Is he a game changer in their opinion? Does he take a team-friendly deal? That is something that we will see, but I definitely can see the San Francisco 49ers being back in the Super Bowl. I definitely believe that they'll be a playoff team. Remember, all of these predictions are based off of what we currently have, and right now everyone is healthy for the most part. Obviously, injuries and whatnot will happen throughout the season, which will make rosters and the predictions of the schedule fluctuate up or down either way. But we'll see how everything goes. Outside of that, again, guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Please do me that solid. It means the world to me that you are helping me out. It truly, truly does. So I really, really, really appreciate it. I really, really, really thank you for all that you do for me. Again, I say it last time, like, share, and subscribe. Do me that solid. It really does me some good. Even putting it here on the screen, I thought it was there already, but it wasn't. It is what it is. Y'all have a good one, man.
Spazzing on the beat, they think I'm crazy. Got it under control, babe. You don't want smoke, all you see is the same.
LB tapping, keys and making waves. Ay.
Step back, keep your distance. Ain't no telling what I just may do. I've been vibing, minding my business. Throw one up if you can relate to. Said if I ain't got it, I make do. Can't be stuck waiting on a breakthrough. And I don't